Isara Olmos, University of the Incarnate Word, Like Water for Chocolate. This film was released in 1992. The story in the film takes place in Mexico in 1910. In the movie, we find the main character Tita is forbidden by her mother, Elena, from marriage and is kept from being able to love her true love, Pedro. The reason behind this decision is the family tradition dictates that the youngest sibling in the family has to care for their parents until their death. The movie's plot centers around Tita and Pedro's love for one another and the pain and suffering endured by Tita. Tita and Pedro met at a celebration when they were children, and from the moment their eyes laid upon each other, they fell in eternal love for one another. When they were of age, Pedro went to Tita's mother, Elena, and asked her for Tita's hand in marriage. Elena denies Pedro's request, as she believes that Tita is to remain forever in her servitude. Elena offers Tita's older sister Rosaura for marriage instead. Pedro decides to take Rosaura's hand in marriage, as he believes this will allow him to remain near to Tita. Tita is forced to make the cake for Pedro and Rosaura's wedding, and is incredibly sad while doing so, and her tears fall into the batter. When everyone eats the cake, they are overtaken by her sad emotions, and it is at this point that Tita's ability to transfer her feelings to others through her cooking is revealed. Pedro does not wish to consummate with Rosaura, but is eventually forced to, and a baby named Roberto will be conceived. Pedro gives Tita roses to celebrate her being head cook for 1 year. Tita makes rose petals and quail with them. When eaten by the family, they are filled with the love and passion Tita felt when she was given them. This causes Tita's sister Gertrudis to be filled with love and passion and run off with a Mexican revolutionary. Rumors spread that Gertrudis is a prostitute. Ashamed, Elena destroys all evidence of her existence and disowns her. When Roberto is born and will only nurse from Tita, sensing that this is bringing Tita and Pedro closer together, Elena sends Pedro and Rosaura to San Antonio with Roberto. Word comes to the ranch that Roberto has grown ill from lack of nourishment and died in San Antonio. Heartbroken, Tita blames her mother for killing Roberto and becomes extremely depressed and refuses to do anything. Elena is going to send Tita off to an asylum when the family friend Dr. Brown says that he would take Tita home with him to Brownsville and make her better. Dr. Brown helps to bring Tita out of her depression and eventually declares his love for her and wants to marry her. Tita, finally feeling free of the oppression she felt at home and genuinely cared for Dr. Brown, agrees to marry him. It is not long after this that Elena is killed when a group of men raids the ranch. This ends Tita's responsibility to care for her mother. After Tita returned to the ranch to attend her mother's funeral, Rosaura gives birth to a girl, and it is revealed by Dr. Brown that Rosaura will not be able to care for the baby. Tita decides that she will remain at the ranch to help her for the child until Rosaura can. During this time, Dr. Brown is regularly gone on business, and Tita's affection for Pedro are reignited when she's around him. It soon becomes evident to Tita that she cannot move on from Pedro and dedicated all of her love to Dr. Brown. She and Pedro eventually have intercourse, and she believes that she is pregnant with a child of his. She is plagued with premonitions of her mother cursing her and her unborn child for her actions. Tita finally faces and stands up to her mother's spirit and casts her away. After this, Tita faces up to what she has done and informs Dr. Brown that she has not been faithful. Dr. Brown tells her that he does not care that she has been with Pedro, but that he simply wishes her to be happy. The film then cuts to a scene where much time has passed, and a wedding for Pedro's daughter and Dr. Brown's son is taking place. After the wedding, Pedro and Tita are finally able to be with one another. As they embrace each other's love, the fire within them burns bright, and Pedro leaves this world. Determined to be with her one true love, Tita does her best to ignite the fire within her and join her true love in a place not of this earth. The following concepts are found in the film, Like Water for Chocolate. First, we have cultural values. An interesting aspect of this film, Like Water for Chocolate, is the constant display of traditional Mexican cultural values influencing the interactions between the different characters. One of the Mexican cultural values that play an important part in shaping the dynamic of the relationship between of major characters is the style of parenting done by the mother, Elena, with her daughters. Elena takes an approach that is described as unidirectional perspective. Unidirectional perspective is a method in which the parent assumes that there is only one direction of flow for information and influence, and that is from the parent to the child. This method is one that is common in Mexican culture and is evident in Elena's relationship with her daughters. Another Mexican cultural value displayed in the film is that of the emphasis of how females have an instinctual association with giving and nurturing life. We can see this in the film by the way that Tita takes to loving and caring for her nephew and niece in the film. Even though they are not her children, she cares for them dearly. When her nephew dies, she becomes troubled by the fact that she could not nurse him and keep him alive. As well, she is also very protective of her niece, to the point that when her sister comments that she will fulfill the family tradition and serve her until death, Tita demands that her niece will never suffer the same fate as her. Next, we have cultural differences. There's a lot of cultural differences represented in the film Like Water for Chocolate, especially when compared to a white, European, and American cultural background. An important aspect of this film is that it allows many to both view and gain a level of understanding for a foreign culture. As well, we can also see a comparison of cultural differences within the movie itself. When we see how life takes place on Tita's ranch in Mexico compared to how life takes place at Dr. Brown's residence in the United States, the ability to recognize and respect different cultures is an important concept for one to learn and possess. People will often look at practices in other cultures from the perspective of their own, with the assumption that their cultural perception and subject is universal. However, this could not be further from the truth. The authors of the article, The Practice of Social Influence in Multiple Cultures, had set out to study this universal view and explain why it was misguided by a white European influence and should be reevaluated. The article, Issues of Cultural Meaningfulness and Emotional Development, goes into greater detail by expanding on how looking at others' cultures with a universal approach can lead even professionals to a misunderstanding or misguided perception of individuals from a different cultural background. It is important to remember that while some cultures may even share a mutual perception on certain subjects, not all cultural values are equal. This must always be kept in mind when observing practices of different cultures. Next, we have familismo. In the movie, it is clear that familismo plays a crucial role within Tita's family dynamic. Many Hispanic families have very strong ties with one another and a keen sense of respect for their parents. Keeping respect for one's parents and family is imperative to the Hispanic culture. We can observe this behavior in the movie Like Water for Chocolate, when Tita continues to stay and serve her mother and family, even though Tita wishes to live this life and marry her love, Pedro. Her dedication to the family and the concept of familismo keeps her at the ranch. We can also observe in the movie what happens when the sense of familismo is broken. When Tita's sister Gertrudis runs away with the Mexican rebel, word eventually comes around that she's working as a prostitute. Tita and Gertrudis' mother, Elena, is angered by the infamous rumors about Gertrudis, that she disowns her and destroys all reminders of her existence. The importance of familismo among Hispanic families was observed in research done to explore if there were different levels of parental and family respect amongst various ethnic groups, and the result of the study did not show that there was. In fact, a greater amount of respect for one's parents in Latino families, as well as a higher rate of discipline, was shown. Latin American families strongly value family unity, which is called familismo. The extended family in the Latin culture can include godparents and close friends. Next, we have bias. Bias positions are displayed and addressed through the film. We can see a clear example of this in the way the main character's mother, Elena, treats Tita. She shows preferential treatment towards Tita's older sister, Rosaura, and has little regard for Tita. She even offers Tita's sister, Rosaura's Pedro, in hand in marriage after turning down his request to marry Tita. Tita holds little more value to her mother than an animal. As far as Elena is concerned, Tita is nothing more than the permanent help for the rest of her life. This view of individual holding little more value than the labor they are capable of doing is discussed in the book Multiculturalism, Roots and Realities. This book focuses solely on how the relationship between untreatment slaves and abolitionists received. Next, we have abuse in single mothers' homes. The use of abuse to exert control is an essential aspect of the film, like water for chocolate. Throughout the entire movie, there are prominent examples of this. One glaring example of abuse with the intentions to force control over others is the expectation of Tita, the main character, to remain silent and not argue for what she sees as injustice. Her mother Elena imposes this upon her, and we can see examples throughout the film where she silences Tita's protests. An important factor behind Elena's reasoning for not allowing Tita to speak up is that she does not want Tita to disagree with what is expected of her, but rather to accept it. We can also see how this practice of expected silence by those in power has been applied throughout history, including in the United States. The book, The Freedom Not to Speak, covers this subject quite well. The book discusses how those in power have used the tool of either silencing others or forcing them to speak against their will, to exert control and compliance over them. We can also see abuse in the form of neglect in the film. Her mother clearly neglects the main character Tita throughout the movie, beginning from when she was born and handed over to the family servant to be raised. Tita is never shown any sympathy or affection from her mother during her entire life. One aspect of this relationship that has been found to be still prevalent even today is the relationship between single mother households and reported child abuse. According to SUE 2015, more cases of abuse have been registered in single-parent households versus dual-parenting households. In the movie, we can observe that Tita, as well as her sisters, suffer the mental abuse of their mother, Elena, regularly bearing over them. Geller 2015 mentions that there is an existing higher rate of abuse in single-mother households compared to single-father homes. Thank you.